Hey there, this is the third video in the series of Introduction to Rigging. There's a button here that I haven't been showing you yet. When you click on it off, it allows joints to show through the mesh. Very, very nice for the work I've been doing here. So again, sorry for not showing that to you earlier. I'm going to set the rotations on the legs and the arms and the head back to the bind pose. The bind pose being the default position for the joints. It's important to set them back to this before doing any work. There we go. I'm also going to select all of these joints and create something called a character set. It's just in character, create character set. And this is kind of like a library. It's a list that keeps track of all the joints that put together this character. It allows us to key them easier when animating. It also allows us easier access to resetting transformations on joints once they're all rigged into a character. As you can see here, there's a new node in the channel box, and it contains the entire character with the joints. So what we're going to do in this video, we're not going to make anything perfect. We're going to just improve and get the painted weights to a passable point. So again, skin, edit smooth skin, paint skin weights tool, open up the tool options. Way more joints than we're used to working with from the previous video here. You can see it goes all throughout the body. And all of these white chunks are default Maya. Maya's got an algorithm that looks at the joint, looks at the mesh, and says, I think this is here, I think that's there. Kind of guesses for you. It's a good starting point, but it's seldom something that you end up going with. So what I'm demonstrating here is just some basic workflow. An interesting thing about painting weights is we always want to paint brighter. We never want to paint darker. The reason being is when you paint lighter, you're telling influence where to go. You're saying, this joint, this vert, influence. But when you paint darker, you're saying, hey vert, don't have any influence on this joint. The trouble with that is that the vert needs 100% influence, and it doesn't know where to go after that. Doesn't know where its influence goes. So then you get this problem where, you get a vert in the shoulder, you paint it darker, and it defaults to the toe, for example. So then you start wiggling your toe and there's a vert in your shoulder moving. And so what I would say is always paint further out of the section you need to, paint more white than you need to paint, and then paint into it with the white of the next joint. A lot of the time while we're painting, we'll want to actually move the joints around and test how our changes are actually being received. What I've done here is I've actually set some keyframes for the arm bending instead of actually bending the arm back and forth and back and forth. This allows us to use the time slider while we're in the paint skin weights tool to see how it's going. Notice in this video I'm switching back and forth mostly between add and smooth. In different phases I'll use add, smooth, and replace. Replace is for very deliberate decisions of saying this vert is going to be 75%, and then painting kind of a ring of 75, going the next step over, painting a ring of 50%, and so on. This is a very tough shoulder to rig. I think part of the problem here is that the joint I've actually placed a little too far away from the sharp part of the shoulder, the top of the shoulder. And also, this Batman picture we're working with is based on a Bruce Timm drawing, which is super cartoony. It's a super thick joint. It's a super angular joint. So it's tricky to get that, especially from an arms down pose, into a straight arms out bird pose. So we're only going to be able to take this so far. See, here I'm finding values that feel like they're the natural correct value. So when I apply them, it's getting off here. You can see I'm building a crease, but especially in the underarm, you can see the value is actually kind of falling into what looks correct. As is usually the case with my third in a series videos, this is a lot less of a tutorial and a lot more of just how I work, going back and forth and trying things and experimenting. The main things to take away from this are, painting lighter, not darker, painting edge loops as rings, using the smooth tool sparingly, using the time slider to animate for you. See, I'm not getting rid of this crease without any fancy work here. So we're just going to have to accept that as a small defeat at this point. See here, I'm painting a new set of white over top to try to shift the center of the weights over. And that looks a little bit better, but it's still just a weird mesh to be working with. Almost looks like he's got a piece of armor on his shoulder. Let's move on to the leg. So again, I'm going to start this time just by moving the leg, putting some keyframes on it, and actually having the leg animate with the time slider so that we can go right into that with the Paint Skin Weights tool. I'm also going to pull these keyframes off the arm because it's distracting me. The leg looks pretty good by default. When I see it bending, it doesn't look like it's causing a whole lot of terrible things. It's just got a little bit of crunching in the hip and in the knee. So let's open it up and see. If we're lucky here, all we'll have to do is just smooth around the edge. We shouldn't have to actually repaint very much if it's already working this well. So let's try it out. We are lucky today. This is working very well. So reasons this is working really well by default, the reason it's less trouble in the shoulder. First of all, the shoulder is a big trouble area. Second of all, the joints are placed very well on this leg, and the edge flow is done very, very well, making this very easy. Still a little sharp, but you can see the sharpness at the top of the calf there. That's not great, but the hip is okay.